In this video, we're going to cover everything about launch angle in baseball. Is it a type of swing? Is it just the way the ball leaves the bat? What should older hitters be doing about it? What should younger hitters be doing about it? What is launch angle? Why do we need to think about it? And why is it so prevalent in the conversation in baseball today? So first, let's cover what launch angle is not. Launch angle is not a type of swing. Launch angle is simply the angle at which the ball leaves the bat. So every batted ball has a launch angle. It could be straight up in the air. That would be 90 degrees. It could be into the ground. That would be in the negative degrees. 0 is horizontal. 90 is straight up. Anything below that we typically call that negative launch angle. So let's define the main different types and how they sort of manifest in baseball. So ground balls are typically less than 10 degrees. And this also depends a little bit on how hard it's hit. But if it's 10 degrees or less, it's probably not going to leave the infield without taking at least a couple hops. Line drives are somewhere between 10 and 25 degrees. Fly balls between 25 and 50 degrees generally. And pop-ups tend to be 50 plus degrees. So this is important to understand. This is sort of how they're categorized. There's a range for each. Now, obviously, when people are talking about launch angle swings, we understand that if you want to lift the ball more often, you can do that. I was a pitcher. So when we would have pitchers BP once in a while for throwing a shutout or whatever, we would try to hit dingers, right? So all of us pitchers would be up there taking a little more uppercut into our swings, trying to lift the ball, trying to hit them out, because we weren't there to hit ground balls to the right side. We had 8 swings to have fun and try to hit the ball out of the ballpark and feel good about ourselves, right? So everyone understands that you can add loft to your hits by swinging with a bigger uppercut. And this is what people typically mean when they're saying these launch angle swings. The difference is understanding who benefits from increased loft in their swings. So let's talk real quick about what the probabilities look like for a couple of different standard launch angles. So home runs at the big league level, we know, are generally between 25 and 30 degrees. They can definitely be a little higher than that. It's kind of rare that they're lower than that, but we also know that the ballpark, it's 330 down the lines, 290 in some places, like in Boston down the right field line. And it's, up to 420 to dead center. So the launch angle is going to be different. Something that might squeak out to left field will probably never go out to center field if it's like a low line drive, like Mark McGwire's 61st home run was a missile that might have had a launch angle of like 18 degrees, right? It's hit very hard, also very low. But most home runs are hit at 95 plus miles per hour. That's sort of like where they start consistently being home runs, and they're 25 to 30 degrees in loft, traditionally. Now, for line drives and probable hits, most balls hit hard at 10 to 20 degrees will be a hit. They're going to fall into that area that's over the infield, but not yet reaching the outfielders. So hitting line drives at 10 to 20 degrees is going to get you on base a lot of the time, assuming that your bat isn't, a wet Wall Street Journal. If you have a little bit of pop and you can hit it at 15 degrees, it's going to go over the infield almost all the time. So if every batted ball was at 15 degrees off your bat, you would have an extremely high batting average, but you also wouldn't hit many home runs and not nearly as many doubles because the ball wouldn't be in the air long enough to get past the outfielders. And then below that, in the 10 degrees and below, it really starts to depend on how hard you hit the ball. So if you're hitting the ball at 5 degrees of launch angle, that's going to carry, maybe 10, 20, 30 feet in the infield before it starts to bounce. So if you hit it really hard, you'll get a lot of hits. If you don't hit it quite as hard, you won't get as many hits. And everything below that is going to be very much dependent on exit velocity. So let's talk about exit velocity for a second. Exit velocity is obviously the speed at which the ball leaves the bat. So the two big important factors which really combine to determine how far a ball is going to go is launch angle plus exit velocity. So if you hit a ball at a 30-degree launch angle at 110 miles per hour, it's always going to be a home run. That ball is going to go in the 400 feet, or it's well into the 400s of feet. And we know for a fact that if you just hit it that hard at that angle, it's going to go out. No ballpark will contain it. So as those angles change, what the outcome is going to be will also change. And this is where we get into the big deal of why are people talking about launch angle and why is it important? So if you're Aaron Judge or you are Mark McGwire or Ken Griffey Jr., anyone else who scorches the ball, and you hit a ball 105 miles per hour. You don't get points for hitting it right back at the pitcher. You'll get a single, right? It'll go through the infield if it doesn't kill him. But that's all you'll get is a single, right? So when you have hitters with a really high bat speed in the major leagues, that's, guys who are consistently hitting the ball well into the hundreds. Of course, everyone can do that, but the guys with more power do it more often. Or if you're a 13-year-old and you consistently can hit it over the outfielder's head, like you have a lot of pop relative for your level, you don't need to know the exact mile per hour that you hit it with your exit velocity. But all of you should know that, hey, I can hit the ball over the outfielder's heads pretty reliably when I get into one. That's going to apply to some hitters and not others at any given level, right? It makes sense to get some air under it because now it's going to go over the outfielders' heads, and that's where you get all the extra base hits and the home runs. Now, who is it not good for? It's really not good to add launch angle into a swing. Again, not into the swing itself, but to try to add loft to your consistently batted balls. It's not a good idea if you don't hit the ball that hard. Because if you're hitting balls at 25 or 30 degrees, which is the home run typical band of launch angles, but you only hit the ball at 80 miles per hour as a high schooler, that ball's never going to leave the yard, even if you hit it at 25 to 30, that magical range. If you hit it at 100, it'll go out. If you hit it at 80, it's a fly out. So this is the really important thing. You have to understand who you are as a hitter and whether or not increased launch is actually going to get the ball over the outfielders' heads. And if it's not, you're just going to add a lot of flyouts to your game. So this is it can be a very misguided thing when parents and players are trying to change their swings to lift the ball more, but they don't actually have the pop to get it over the outfielders' heads reliably. Even in the major leagues, everyone can hit a ball probably 110. But it's going to be pretty rare for the second baseman on a big league team who's not nearly as big and strong versus like a first baseman like Pete Alonso, who's enormous and has a lot more bat speed than he does. So Pete Alonso doesn't have to hit the ball as perfectly to get his 100 mile per hour or 105 mile per hour exit speed as someone who's smaller, who probably can do it, but only if they hit it perfectly. And that's a really important thing to understand as well. So as you look at take-home implications for launch angle in baseball, the implications are this. If you're a legitimate power hitter for your level, you can definitely reliably hit the ball over the outfielders' heads. Then consistently trying to get more loft into your batted balls makes sense for you because you're going to turn line drives into doubles and homers. If you are the type of player who does not have the power to reliably hit the ball over the outfielders' heads at your level, then it makes much more sense to hit line drives over the infield, which will result in you being on base much more often. So Aaron Judge should lift the ball more often, and someone small like Jose Altuve, who does have a lot of pop, I mean, he's hit 30 plus home runs, he's still most of the time going to try to hit line drives over the infield and maybe into the gaps because he's still smaller. So if he doesn't square balls up quite as well, he's going to fly out a lot more if he doesn't. So even in the big leagues, it's hard to find examples again, like Jose Altuve hit 30 plus home runs in a season. But he's a good example of a smaller player who in general is going to want to spray the ball over the infield, take his singles and doubles and try to hit line drives as his like default versus a big power hitter who's going to try to lift the ball over the outfielders' heads more as his default. Because again, you don't want to hit a ball 100 or 110 miles per hour and only get a single out of it. Every time you hit a ball 100 or 110 miles per hour, you'd like to get 4 bases out of it and jog around the bags. So this is the thing to understand, and it comes down to understanding who you are as a player. If you are a small player and you don't have a ton of pop and you cannot reliably hit it over the outfielders' heads, you should not be trying to do that. You should be trying to hit line drives over the infield, which is 10 to 20 degrees of launch angle. If you have a lot of power, then 20 plus degrees is going to make sense for you. You're going to be able to put it over the outfielders' heads consistently, and you'll see your extra bases and the damage you do to another team go up pretty reliably. So that's sort of the takeaway from launch angle. So hopefully this video has been helpful. One of the big things to remember at all walks of life and in baseball is that knowing yourself, what you're capable of and what you're not, is very important to your success. So you can be extremely successful as a baseball player without having a ton of bat speed and pop. You don't have to hit home runs to be successful in baseball. But If you do have that pop, then you can also add more home runs and extra base hits to your game by being smart and adding loft to your batted balls by thinking a little bit more about launch angle. All right. So again, hopefully today's video is helpful. If you have more questions, leave them in the comment section below. And for more info on figuring out who you are as a ball player and what's important to you in your career, check out my new book, Clean Your Cleats. It's got all sorts of discussions just like this, easy to understand for ball players of all ages. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you here in the next video.